now I invite architect Gaurish Chandawarkar for a panel discussion to take as a moderator and take the session further. I also invite Mr. Robin Das for a panel discussion, and architect MADHUP MAZUMDER, please, architect HITEN SETHI, and architect KHOZEMA.
I will stand, don't worry. Who's coming? He's not coming. Gaurish. I'm taking, I'm.
Robert? I thought you were already here. Yeah, please.
So there's one mic which should travel. One mic which can. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the second session of this wonderful event that has been organized here. I take great pride in being here and participating in this wonderful event. Thank you, all of you, to be here. And we have this wonderful panel of speakers, professionals, educationists, and manufacturers of this important topic that we are going to take up today. Safety as such is of concern as parents, as new age parents, and in India in particular. So, and safety for children in play equipments is an important topic that has to be touched upon, and we have to share some ideas and exchange views. Robert, thank you so much for the presentation. It brings in an insight to say that there is somebody who's raising the red flag and bringing in the beacon for us to follow. I hope that we will seriously look at this presentation and come to some understanding of how we can implement it. To begin with, what I'm going to do is I'm going to break this into two parts, professional and manufacturing, because I think most of us are part of it. And the first question I would like to take it up is to MADHUP, as his experience, because he's a landscape architect, a very renowned landscape architect, having practice all over, and particularly having children's play area as one of the important components in landscape. So MADHUP, before we start really questioning all the safety aspects and put the ball into the manufacturer's court, I would like you to share some experience on what is it that goes into the designing of children's play area or bringing the equipments in landscape.
Thank you, Gaurish. I think primarily we have to understand that we are, as designers, have to be extremely sensitive about the fact that whatever we are going to design has to be appreciated by the children. So it is not satisfying our aesthetic sensitivity, also satisfying their vision, and also the multi-sensorial aspect of the children to be developed, because it is all about exploring, it is all about facing the challenges by the children, at the same time being very safe. So as a landscape architect, when we are working on the ground, the landscape design and the children's play equipment design has to go hand in hand as a complementary system to overall guide what is going to be the play environment, including the color, including the choice of materials, including the choice of the textures and everything else altogether. Regarding the safety, obviously, Robin would be able to talk better, but then I think it is very important for us as landscape architects to think that child-friendly environments are very important to keep in priority, also in terms of site planning, which is very often taken care of at the fag end of the project. And there is negligence and negligence of crime. Because once we neglect certain standards, we cannot, replace it back. So we have to keep those provisions and the budgets in hand so that it becomes an integral part of our design, because ultimately, when we are even designing a housing estate, the future generation is going to stay and grow over there. So it's very important that we keep in child-friendly environment as a center point of or a cornerstone of our landscape design.
Thank you so much. Let me take this question ahead to Robin or Robert as to the materiality of these equipments. Robin, can you help us out with this? Is that the materiality that we're talking about a safety factor in the Indian context? Because, in India, we have been brought up by playing in the mud. You know, abhi to wo mahol hi nikal gaya. Now we are more into this artificial thing. So how would you relate? What was your challenge to get the Indian psyche to accept these beautiful, colorful, artificial material?
I like that question because, you know, it's sometime earlier I was sitting in the green pavilion and HITEN was talking about, and Sandeep was talking about exactly the same as to how everything has changed from over the, you know, past ages. We never needed green to be such a big, you know, part of our lives today because everything was green anyways. Things have changed. Dynamics have changed. The way we live today has changed. So when we went out on the streets and played gully cricket or, you know, played soccer on the road, that's not possible today. Today we have limited spaces. You know, real estate comes at a premium. And in these big buildings, we need to try and accommodate, you know, what we can to the best of our abilities. Now, in this scenario, you have a huge amount of population, you know, that's concentrated in very small areas, especially in cities like Bombay and Delhi and Bangalore. And then the areas start to shrink, you know, the play spaces start to shrink. And play spaces are very important because that's where a child actually develops his social abilities, his emotional abilities. He learns how to share. He learns how to be, you know, he grows up to be an adult starting from these play spaces. So when we have the small areas and so many kids out there, it's important that we start looking at safety very seriously. The playground industry all over the world is actually one of the most controlled industries. And the reason why it's really controlled is because, you know, it involves child safety. In India, unfortunately, there are no standards. There are no standards for a lot of things. All over the world, the safety standards very clearly exist. It's the EN Charter, the EN 1176 in Europe, it's the ASTM in America. And unless your products actually adhere to these, they are designed, manufactured, installed, and also maintained after being installed in according to these norms, you can't really install these products anywhere there because the liabilities there are very huge. The penalties there are very huge. And nobody takes a chance over there. And also, life is precious in most countries besides India. Yeah, that's so. I believe that it's very important for us while we are working with the government very strongly to try and bring in legislatures and, you know, statutory certifications. It needs to start with all of us, you know, as key stakeholders in the industry. It needs to start with manufacturers. It needs to start with specifiers. It needs to start with developers. Everybody needs to want to do this for it to take off and to start.
So this thought process links to the two other participants on the panel, HITEN and KHOZEMA, as to what has been your experience when you are promoting the children's play area, apart from it, of course, being one of the most important elements in increasing the value of the property. What has been your experience when somebody comes to you saying, hey, I want a children's play area, or, you know, they come with some area which will perhaps redefine the childhood or the child. What has been your experience, HITEN or KHOZEMA?
So, initially when I got a particular opportunity to think about what children area should be in one of my projects, I always used to think it's all about play rides and it's all about equipments, it's all about dynamism, about what environment is to be created. You know, but what I realized it itself is a very in-depth kind of understanding. And it again starts from a basic thing, what is the best site location, what is flora, fauna, what is the soil conditions over there. For every smallest of things, what do you really want to put it. So like Gaurish was saying, we used to play kanchas, you know, in our youth. At least I used to play. We used to have fly kites. So, I mean, why are we looking at play areas into a particular kind of things where we have to install equipments only. I mean, this, according to me, I think children areas can be as wide as possible. So I'm sorry, I mean, I'm not promoting the product as such, but I'm promoting the question was about children's park area. So my thought process is very simple. I think holistically, children's play area becomes a very, very strategic kind of problem, you can say, or an assignment which you need to take as a holistic approach towards designing of this particular thing. For example, in one of our projects where we had garbage yard, which we converted, I think GAURISH was our consultants for one of the projects in Navi Mumbai for Wonders Park, where the whole site was covered by this thing. And we were mandated that we want to make a children's park. But when we saw the nature of the site and all those particular things, we get into details. I mean, I must say the industry of equipment play industry has grown to its matured levels. In India, it's still at a basic stage, but I think Western countries and other things, it's already reached because amusement and adventure has been their prime focus from eons years together. So I think my understanding is I would like to take a holistic approach towards the whole thing and sort out my issue of what I design as a children's area.
Thank you so much. KHOZEMA?
If I may just add there, Hiten, the standards don't only really talk about equipment. It talks about the entire areas where children are exposed to. So the standards actually cover spaces, not products only.
Nice.
So when we talk about play and fun, we always think about the outdoor spaces. But there are so many elements in our day-to-day lifestyle where children play areas need to be created indoor also. And fortunately or unfortunately, I have been a worried father. 20 years back, my daughter had a great fall tumbling down from a giraffe, which she took up to the peak of the giraffe, and all of a sudden that metal pipe on which she was supposed to stay broke.
Whoa.
Because it was rusted, it was corroded. So I feel that the equipment and other things have developed well, but at the same time, when it comes to the indoor spaces of recreation, such kind of recreation, we as designer also need to do justice, because I do a lot of hotels, and really I was doing one of the best brand of India, and we were planning for it, and we were told, oh, staircase ke niche ka jagah bach gaya hai. That is the kind of area which you should use for a children play area, because that's a non-revenue generating area. But that's not the fair way of looking in terms of planning. We need to make more justice, more better approach to those design. And yes, standards need to be followed. I would say that. And to certain extent, I yet feel that being mechanical, I think so, those Vitti Dandu, Bauras and other things, what we have been playing as our Indian games, we need to have certain spaces which needs to get the children footloose, because by doing all this exercise, it's a very, very organized program kind of a thing, but there has to be some kind of flexibility in whatever play area we design or whatever standards we lay down. We should be able to do flexibility, so that if tomorrow we want to organize probably our Indian kabaddi or whatever kho kind of a thing also should be possible there. Sure. It should not be cluttered with the equipment, because most of the time we find that those place areas are filled up with, most of them are filled up with a lot of equipments which leaves no space for walking around and running around.
Very true, very true. It's actually the Indian mentality of Hindi film, where they need everything. They want thoda action, thoda drama, ek maa. So that's how it goes. But coming back,
kitna degi?
वो तो अभी यश फिर इसको पूछेंगे. So Madhup, coming back to you, we saw these visuals which KOOCHIE has put up, and most of the times we find that these are the primarily the way they give the product. You know, the razzmatazz, the color, the shape, which is mushroom. In your case, when you are a sensitive landscape architect, would you want to share your thoughts on introducing the play equipments and the safety part of that, which aligns with the landscape thought?
Yes, hello. Yeah, of course. I think the landscape design and the play zone design has to almost marry, and also the fact of the matter is that we are all talking about able children, and we have to also think that there might be limited ability on certain child. I think that's a great zone of research. I don't know whether it's done or not. There might be children with different abilities. Are there play zones or play equipment designed for that, or whether the landscape design or the detailings of that particular play zone can actually complement what a colorful play equipment cannot do for the child. So there has to be a lot of design research to be done for also that segment of the children.
Right.
Yeah.
Great. So this question comes back to you, Robin or Robert, about this aspect of
I think
what is it?
in that particular video in China, there was a particular zone also for children with limited abilities. And that's somewhere I think we have to go deeper into so that it is totally a complete program for every children. And everybody has a right.
Absolutely. It was a wonderful thing to look at that statement. Congratulations to you on that. It was a wonderful thing to see that you have touched upon something which is for differently abled. Can you just give us some idea of how you have thought of the safety aspects, or how do they differ from a normal child, that the differently abled, and how do you mix it up? Where you say, you don't have to say an area, this is for differently abled. Are the safety factors different? Is it the standards different?
There are certain considerations that would be added to the regular charter to provide for specially abled children. Today's play spaces is all about being holistic. It's all about being all-inclusive. It's very important to use the word inclusive here because it's important to have special ability children work and play with other children to be able to integrate them. So the EN Charter, it's actually a 98-page manual that very, very, like HITEN said, you know, everybody looks at playgrounds and play spaces as, acha, chalo, you know, there's a place below the staircase, let's put something there. It's actually very scientific. It's actually very cultured, the entire topic and you know, the chapter of play spaces. So the EN chapter of 1176, which is this 98-page manual, covers all aspects, including specially able children. So if your product is basically tested and certified, it means that it's covered all these chapters.
That's cool. Coming back to HITEN, and of course, KHOZEMA, is the fact that do the building industry or the builders or the developers that are there, are they really aware of any of this? Do they come to you with a finger pointed on this? Are there any developers that comes in?
In my experience, no. So they just have a very vague idea exactly what they're looking for in terms of amenities, what they would like to provide in the community which they are developing. But if I really want to push it a little harder and go deeper, scratch a little deeper about their requirements or their vision, I really don't think they've sort of this thing. But at the same time, they have never challenged the kind of any kind of suggestions which have come from consultants from my team or my landscape consultants team. They have been open about these particular things because it's an area where everybody likes to contribute. I mean, I've never seen any resistance from anybody to not to offer something good to the community. I've been lucky, perhaps. I mean,
I think as responsible designers, if we made it as a mandate, and while during the design, right from the concept stage, and talk about the specifications which are required. I mean, I should not look at it only that this as per vendor specification. No, that's where should not stop. Right. We should know that what he talked about that 98-page document.
Right.
And we should imbibe that into our design specification and make it sure that whoever comes has to match this.
Absolutely.
And if we do not do this right from the beginning of the project, then obviously at the end of the project we cannot enforce it.
I'm sure that's the way to go, because that's what the first statement he made was, that it's a collective process where if we make people aware of these standards and if we can get this in place, then I think we can go someplace on this. Yes, KHOZEMA?
No, I am in complete agreement what Madhu and Hiten are mentioning, but I also feel that there is the industry works on a different with a different mindset also. Even if we specify, they always look for an alternative which is not the first best, but it is always the second or third best, because the price is always the factor which governs the. And ultimately, if I would say a developer is staying in that particular complex, he will try and ensure that he uses the best. But if he is not staying in the complex and he's not going to be managing that, he wants to complete his amenity category and walk out of there as far as possible and dump it on the society so that the society manages. You will find that most of those equipments which are put into the real estate projects are, after a couple of years, they demand huge amount of maintenance, and it becomes a challenge for the society to manage that, because they do not have a clue. It is fly-by-night company, probably somebody who is not professional enough. So, or even if there is a company, the cost of maintenance, because initial capex has been low, the maintenance costs are high. So things of those kind of challenges are there in our project, and I think so we are living with it.
So I would like Robin to come into this. You say safety, you say updated product, you say wow, you say this is fantastic. And then when the society has to use it, they find it difficult to maintain.
Okay.
How would you perhaps approach to this and give a solution so that it is more acceptable and more popular?
Ideally, a good playground system does not need maintenance. We don't really maintain our products, even though they are 5 or 6 years old. Nothing really goes wrong, because they're built to be in the outdoors. They're supposed to be not used, they're supposed to be abused by children. Yeah, and a good playground needs to be that way, you know. We've got projects 7 years, 8 years, and we don't really maintain. There's nothing to maintain in our products. I want to just take one take from KHOZEMA's remark there, that at many times, you know, the developer, he tries to use something to save cost. There's one thing that, you know, people are forgetting here, that the cost can be huge, because this could also end up being a negligence suit. And, you know, if something goes wrong with a patron's kid in your project, the first guy that they're going after is the owner of the project. Yeah. You know, then a few thousands that your purchase guy probably saved is not going to make a difference. And the only difference between an accident and a negligence, you know, suit is what precautions you took or you failed to take when you put products into your project. So that's why, again, coming back to using tested and certified products is so important. It actually saves costs in the long term.
I'll add to that. As per the statutory norms, GAURISH, RERA and all particular things, they have actually now made mandated that it's not only clients who are responsible, it's the architects and the consultants who have to take the responsibility of the product for 10 years.
Whoa, that's
Earlier
nice.
It used to be 3 years.
Super.
So there cannot be at any given time any compromise on any kind of specifications. The first thing I'm going to do is ask for that 92 pages manual from it, because I've been doing many things
there.
So my hands are up.
So with no
Not only that, it actually has got very good design standards, which is to be a guideline for us.
So that's going to be the next holy book for safety factors for architects and offices and landscape architects. That's nice. So one more question which is pertinent, which I should ask you before I open this question-answer session to the panel here, to the audience here, is that what is the approach that you would have to take these safety standards to the education system? Because you see sometimes, and that's been my experience, that the corruption starts at the education system. It's no awareness, it's the same syllabus, it's the same thing that goes through. So would you be taking up any kind of a strong stand to make the younger generation at the education level, to empower them with these standards of safety so that they can perhaps apply it?
Yeah, good question. As a brand, from its inception, the only thing we always were very passionate about and focused on was safety. And we realized at that time that it was an uphill task because we had to first educate the market on why it's important. So we've done, and we continue to do, a lot of knowledge programs. We have a scholarship program running. And all these are addressing young architects and landscape consultants, wherein we share our knowledge and experience, about safety and certification with them. That's one that we're trying to do at grassroots levels. We're also working in Delhi to try and get, the statutory compliance added into the building code. Because I think that is very important to raise and elevate the whole industry as such in this space.
That's right.
Yeah, so that's what we're doing. But it's very difficult to do it alone. You need the entire community of key stakeholders to walk with you and help you in this endeavor.
I'm sure you will. With your intent, I'm sure there will be some support. After this more.
Gaurish, can on your behalf, I'm suggesting him that if he writes to the appropriate people and appropriate people in each of the colleges, we have landscape design as a part of a curriculum of architecture. They would love to introduce one session of yours and have you in the college, provided you go to the college and you support that. And I think so Gaurish can take it from here.
I'm sure.
His part, he would take it. He would be more than happy to invite you in his college.
Not only me, but I'm sure MADHUP will also be, because we have an Indian Society of Landscape Architects and it's a very strong association. So MADHUP, why don't you just shed some light on this, or something more that you want to say?
I think it is not about only aligning with the landscape departments or the schools. It's also to do with the product design departments.
Sure.
So I think there can be joint, because product design, even School of Planning has got product design, NID has got product design. So if they can have joint workshops with the landscape department, product design department, and they can actually conduct those workshops, then it will be the best thing, because it's also to do with the nuts and bolts.
Sure.
And when you talk about the safety standards and something to read 95 pages, student might not be excited. But the same student would be excited to find a solution of a nut and bolt. Sure. If he is a product design student, to find a solution which is safe. So it has to start from that scale, which is a micro scale of the detail, to the macro scale of the design. So the combined workshop is going to be more effective. And then in process, they would be sensitized.
We have not only, I'm sure Robin came here thinking that he's going to talk of his products, but we have burdened him with so much more social work. Robin, one last question. But we are very happy to have you here. I think the way you went about with a short clip there, I know it may not be to promote your product, but I am surely that particular shot helped each one of us to perhaps become better at applying ourselves. But one last question which I want to ask you again before I spend it out is that, do you have any children as consultants in your...
Very, very good question. Very, very good question. So a lot of our design team works with children in terms of concept and product design. I understand as architects and landscape consultants, everybody hates the reds, blues and greens. I know you do. And everybody likes for the landscape to be in tone with, to be subtle, to be taupe, to be not very loud and stand out. But you need to realize that these products are meant to be used not by you and me, but by little children.
Sure.
So these colors, the animation, all of them originate from little kids who sit with the design team and the creative team and then come up with concepts and designs and themes. So children are a very, very important aspect of the entire business.
There we go. So I have one more question, but then every time I say one more question, not fair. So let me ask the audience here if you have any questions for them which you think are pertinent in your mind with regarding to safety. As a moderator, I'll listen to your question and then I'll...
About a month back, I went to the old shop in my locality where as a kid I used to buy rubber balls to play with. I probably bought 100 of them when I was kids. But now, since I don't have any child in my house, so I lost contact with them for a long time, I wanted one to buy for my dog. And when I asked them, he said, sorry, we don't sell it anymore. I mean, this is the same guy from whom I used to buy. So I was very surprised. What? You don't have a rubber ball in your store, like a locality store? He looked at me and said, have you seen anybody playing anymore in the same areas where you used to play? And I said, yes, right. I have never seen anybody playing there. I noticed, but it never registered. So my question is that today when the kids it's not going to the playing field, you may design beautiful toys for them, but how do we bring them back in the play field? They are getting stuck to this digital world. So I was just wishfully thinking, is there a way to connect the both, this digital world and this play world? I know there was one video game which came out called Pokemon, which was become a little bit more unsafe. But can we think of some games which can actually be digital? They can use their fancy digital equipment and tie it with these conventional seesaws and things. Something of that sort. I mean, I don't know if it's safety or not.
It's not related to safety as such as the physical term. I think it's more to do with the mental bringing. But I think we should take the question.
No, so it's all about getting kids off the couch, getting them off TVs and iPads, which have become big problems today. Non-communicable diseases are today's biggest killers in society, and that stems from bad diets and no physical activity. So it's very important to get kids out there. But then what age group are we looking at? So if it's really little kids, then interactive play is not what they're really looking at. They're looking at playgrounds like this. So what age appropriate group are we looking at? We also have interactive playgrounds, which is a lot about running and working with computers on products that look not like this, but therefore like teenagers and a little older kids. So it's important to make the play space and the play area interesting for the child to want to go out and then play on that structure, or a teenager, or a child in between the juvenile and teenage age. So it's very important to make sure that you make your play spaces interesting enough for it to be able to also be consistent in them going back.
But I feel, I think safety also is a part of it, because I grew up in a neighborhood called Wadala. And again, same central government housing societies, we had C-shaped thing, courtyards in between. 20 years, again I revisited the same place, and the whole of my playgrounds were converted by car parking spaces. So he is right. I mean, it's not only fact. Actually, the problem is that it's safety and rapid urbanization. How many oval Maidans do you think we have really added in the last few developments? What have happened? Every time, as an architect planner, whenever I see at the particular proposal coming in new DCRs, how many of you have really objected that no, 10% of RG is not enough? At that time, we were always talking about pro-builder, pro-development, that no, 8% is also good, you're giving it in slums. So finally, I think we are all culprits. Let's not isolate ourselves from any kind of issues that have happened. But it is a recognizable fact that we are very low on urban recreational spaces, play spaces. And I think we have to have some mitigation measures where we really come out with faster plans like this to have more spaces than you can get your rubber balls sooner.
Hi, I don't really have a question. I'm just going to add on to what Robin just said and mentioned about the designing of these spaces and the safety factors. And not just the outdoor play spaces, as you mentioned, our play spaces are integral to the interiors as well, within larger formats where you have play spaces. And apart from safety, because we are in an environment of design and architecture, so the 3 S's where we lay emphasis on designing these is sensibility, sensitivity, and then safety. So all 3 become very integral to designing any indoor space for kids. And like you mentioned, the colors, the forms, the entire environment that needs to be created. After all, there's a kid in each one of us. So that space is to appeal to everybody from a 2 to 80, you know. So that is how across the format these spaces need to be thought of and then created, because we in our practice have been involved in designing lots of interior play spaces as part of entertainment zones, you know. We've done like fun cities in the Middle East and making, you know, water parks and snow parks, and we've been in the entertainment, recreation, leisure industry at large. So designing fun spaces and putting in equipment like this is indoors, outdoors, across all formats. So those 3 S's become very important as added to the safety, you know. Sensibility and sensitivity is very integral.
Thank you so much. It was very nicely put. In fact, you said everything that I wanted to say. So thank you once again. I think we are running short of time. And this discussion should carry on, as I said, at different platforms. Robin and HITEN, Madhu, KHOZEMA, if you participate and you help to take this thing ahead at different platforms, that'll be great. Thank you once again for being here, and I should thank the audience for being such a lovely guys to see here and put up some questions for us. Thank you so much, and thank you to iDAC and this pavilion which has been set up by the fire department. So thank you all, and I'm wishing you a great evening ahead. Thank you so much.
So friends, I think so we'll take one clue from here. There is a manual which was proposed to be taken from here. There was a manual in earlier discussion which we have requested. So I believe we should take, and each and every curator of this particular pavilions should bundle up those manuals and start circulating to every architect, because that will help us. Ashlesh, Ganesh, if you could do that, then it will be a wonderful exercise, and I think so we all professionals would love it, because ultimately what we don't want to read those thick books, we want to read the content which is relevant to us, and that will help.
Thank you so much. Thank you everybody, and we'll meet again.